Welcome everybody to the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card reading and another in the series of You Through the Houses. So if you've been watching the others in this series, what we're doing is we're going through each house in the astrology chart, looking at what it rules and governs, and then looking at the energies for you in relation to that area of your life. And today, in episode 7, of course, we're doing the 7th house. So the 7th house is all about relationships. It has a bit of a tilt towards sort of committed love relationships, partnerships and so forth, but it does cover all types of relationships. So we can pick up family and friends as well, and also work and so forth. So in today's reading, we're going to look at all three of those areas and the relationship energy in your chart and in your life more generally at the moment around relationships. So we'll look at, as I say, each of those areas, both with some oracle cards and then with tarot in more detail. Then we'll have a look at what needs to be healed or processed, excuse me, around relationships for you to get the best possible relationship energy in your life. Also what's working really well and you can pat yourself on the back for, and what you can maximize, and then bring it all together with some astrology and other things like that near the end of the reading. Now, if you've seen these before, you'll be familiar with the format. It's a different format to my normal pick a card readings, in as much as what I'm going to do in a minute, once I explain the format, is that I'm going to do a bit of a high level overview about the 7th house and what that means astrologically. So I will be covering what it means at a very high level to have particular signs in the 7th house and to have particular planets in the 7th house. So this will be marked out in the timestamps. It's really a part of the reading for those of you who know your astrology chart, who know what sign you have in the 7th house, what planets you have there, or who have the information to get that. So if you know your time of birth, place of birth, and date of birth, you can go to various online sites and plug that information in and get a free printout that'll tell you what sign is in each house, and also what planets are in each house. So this is just to give a bit of a high level indication of what those things mean, and not in any great depth. So if you have that information, by all means listen to that part of it, but it's not necessary for you to actually get whatever you're going to get out of the reading. So if that's not for you, then by all means just skip to the pile choice part in the timestamps below now. And if you're an astrologer, you obviously don't need to hear this high level thing, because it's going to be very 101 for what you know. But if you do want to listen to it and you want to add any thoughts that would enrich the information for people with this reading in the comments below, that's of course very welcome. So as I say, in the timestamps now, we're going to be moving to where I talk about the astrology. And I'm just doing this via my own knowledge of astrology from years of living with astrologers and just growing up with it, and my sort of views about it, and also what I have been able to find in very reputable sites for, again, that kind of high level thing. So firstly, let's talk about what sign you have in the 7th house. And for many of you, if you see your chart, you may see a couple of signs in the house. It depends on how it's structured. If that's the case, go for the one that is the dominant one, that actually takes up the most space, so to speak, in the 30 or so degrees. So starting from Aries. So if you have Aries in the 7th house, then you're very action oriented in relation to relationships. You might be a bit competitive, or you might draw competitive people to you. Kind of any of these signs, the energy you either could actually exhibit or you could draw towards you. You're definitely very action oriented, as I say. You're the first, probably, you're likely to be the person who would ask someone out or take the initiative in some way. And you like energy, and you like passion, and you like dynamism and just getting on with it in relationships. You could potentially get bored a bit easily if sort of someone was sort of like slower or needed to be, more care and so forth. So be aware of that. There's always that balance of assertion and aggression and action and competitiveness and passion, how you balance all that out. If you have Taurus in the 7th house, then you're really likely to be engaged in having great relationships that are all about the good life, and about enjoying life and the earthy pleasures of life. You could be a bit stubborn in relationships sometimes, a little bit hard to move, and probably a little bit slow to commit. But once you do commit, you're very much there and very, very loyal. If you have Gemini in the 7th house, you like vibrant, volatile, variable, witty, entertaining sort of connections, and you're likely to be a bit of, the life of the party, at least in the sense of, communication and so forth. You're likely to have quite a wide variety of relationships and friends. You might be one of those sort of people who, if you got all your friends together in a dinner party, half of them would wonder why the other half were there, because you're very eclectic and have a lot of different sort of interests and so forth. And you might, with your most important partner, very much first meet on a meeting of the minds and wit and repartee and that kind of thing. If you have Cancer in the 7th house, you're highly protective, very family oriented, really look after the relationships you have, could be very private about them. You really want to establish emotional security and connection in any relationships you have, and that would even include, family, friends, and work as well. There's just a very naturally protective side for you. If you have Leo in the 7th house, you're likely to be quite dramatic and like entertaining sort of relationships. You probably want to be centre stage. If you draw other people like yourself, you might sometimes compete a bit for centre stage, but you're very passionate, you're very loyal. Once you've committed, you've really committed, and you really want to enjoy relationships and have, real enjoyment and passion from the people that you connect with. If you have Virgo in the 7th house, then you're likely to be very practical and grounded about relationships. It's Virgo, they often joke, is everything in its right place at its right time, and there's a degree to that which would also be in your relationships. You might be almost a little bit compartmentalized, like this is my friendship relationships, this is my love relationships, this is my career ones, and so forth. That's one possibility. Beyond that, you might really like to connect with people on issues around sort of nature and health and the environment and all the sort of things that Virgo cares about. If you have Libra in the 7th house, you value harmony and justice above all things in relationships. You really like balance, and you're likely to be a natural peacemaker. Very, very philosophical about relationships. Very much, again, a meeting of the minds when you connect with people. With Scorpio, it's sort of like almost the opposite. It's very intense emotionally, very deep. You go very deep, almost forensically deep in terms of relationships. So in any area, you really like to get to know people. You really want to know what makes them tick. You really want to get to the core. When you're in love, you're very passionate, very intense, very loyal, but you could get a bit obsessive if you don't watch it. Or you could draw obsessive relationships to you as well with Scorpio in the 7th house. With Sagittarius in the 7th house, you're more about sort of freedom. You like relationships that have their own place, and that you have freedom and they have freedom. Love things like philosophy, travel, enjoying life in that sense, very creative, very spontaneous. But freedom is a really big part of it, and finding people with a similar sort of philosophical approach to life is important to you. Capricorn in the 7th house could bring power issues into relationships. There's certainly a lot of structure, stability, loyalty, commitment, all of those sort of things with Capricorn. Maybe a little bit slow to make the commitment, but once you do, you really do make it. But you're certainly around things like sort of resources, the powers of the world. And I think you'll have a lot of relationships that are connected to work or your career in some way, even potentially love relationships, business partnerships that are also, like the spouse, two spouses, being in business together. That kind of thing could happen with Capricorn. With Aquarius in the 7th house, you could seem a bit aloof or distant sometimes, a little bit sort of philosophical, again, very much a meeting of the minds. You're very future focused, and you would like that with other people as well. You're also very much about the big picture issues and transformation and so forth at that level. So you like people who have that broader expanse, and you're likely to work with people like that, have friends like that, and seek that out in a partner. If you have Pisces in the 7th house, then you're likely to have very psychic and intuitive connections. You really like that. You're likely to be looking for a soulmate. You've got a pretty good chance you're likely to find the soulmate as well in this life. You could be a bit shy. You'll put a lot of emotional energy into relationships, but you are very, very sensitive. So you need to know that you can trust the people. But as I say, your psychic instincts are likely to be very strong. Okay, so that's the signs. If you have various planets, so we'll just go through these one at a time. So if you have the sun in the 7th house, you're very proud of your ability to be harmonious and to negotiate and to mediate and so forth. There's something about relationship that is part of your life path, whether it is the key relationship, a divine union, or whether it is that you work in some way that's about relationships, or whether just resolving, building, bringing harmony to relationships is part of what you're here to do. You very much want to accommodate other people. There is a bit of a risk that you may accommodate too much. So make sure that you are clear about who you are and what you need as well in relationships. A bit similar with the moon, you really want to have the company of people that there's an emotional resonance with and a balance, and you like harmony. You could be a little bit shy or identify a little bit too strongly, on the other hand, with the relationships that you have. You're very adaptable to others' needs. So both the sun and the moon, there is a question when you have it there in the 7th house about getting that balance right of what you need emotionally and in your life path and what others need. With Mercury, on the other hand, you're quite happy to debate. You love a discussion. You love a debate. You tend to get close via thought, via communication, and you may sometimes overanalyze relationships. People might sometimes find you looking too deep into something or getting too much into an argument and interpret that as being somewhat, combative as opposed to explorative, which is what you really are. With Venus, you have a great love for relationships. You probably don't want to be alone. You would not be sort of someone who would want to be single for a long period of time, if possible. You're very much a peacemaker, and you can enter relationships a bit too quickly. And a bit like with the sun and the moon, again, it's sort of that balance of what do you do to keep the peace compared to what do you need emotionally. Very important in particular around your primary love relationship, because you love deeply, you love really deeply with Venus in the 7th house. With Mars in the 7th house, you need a partner who challenges you and that you can challenge. You're very passionate, very action-oriented. You really want to sort of like enjoy life with the people that you connect with. And, in work, you would want active, energetic sort of people to connect with. With Jupiter in the 7th, you're very good at cultivating close and positive relationships, and that's important to you. You're also likely to be excellent at mediation, negotiation, that sort of thing. Legal matters around relationships are likely to go in your favour more often than not, which is good. And you may, around work in particular, succeed most if you're in a partnership in some way. It seems to be possibly luck and abundance that connects to your relationships in that way. If you have Saturn in the 7th house, you could be drawn to people who have kind of like Saturn-like ways of being, kind of very sort of stoic, somewhat a bit stern, maybe a little bit aloof. There's also a sort of deep sense of commitment in relationships here. Saturn is sort of something that is long-term. You like long-term, reliable relationships. You're very, very responsible in relationships. So a bit like with the sun and the moon and Venus, but in a different way. If you have Saturn there, just make sure you're not always the responsible one and always the adult in the room. Like sometimes other people need to step into their responsibility as well. With Uranus in the 7th house, you could be a bit inconstant or erratic around relationships, but you're still very genuine. It's not that you don't care about these people. It's just that you're kind of, with that Uranian sort of energy, you're very changeable and you like change and you like revolution. You may be a little bit reluctant to commit as a result, because you also really want your freedom. With Neptune in the 7th house, you may give more than you get again. So there's a bit of a theme with a lot of planets, I think, that sit in the 7th house. If they are the sort of planets that are about, giving, taking, that kind of thing, there is a little bit of a default to giving too much. So it's just worth thinking about. You're certainly looking for a soulmate. You may very well find one. You will likely to have very strong psychic links with people. So make sure you pay attention to your gut about people. But it is important, because Neptune can bring a lack of clarity and so forth. that you really look at people in your relationships to work out whether you're seeing them as you want them to be or how they really are. With Pluto there's probably power struggles, change, transformative relationships. You may transform people a lot through relationships, or your relationships may transform you a lot. Very intense, maybe a bit obsessive sometimes. Again, you could be obsessive, or obsession could come towards you. Very big, strong change energy around relationships for you. But ultimately, probably very positive if you can ride that wave of intensity. And lastly, with Chiron, which is an asteroid, this is an asteroid that shows some sort of childhood wounding or issues in whatever house it's in. So if it's in the 7th house, this could show that there were difficulties around long-term relationships in your growing up years. Your family might have broken up. You could have come from a broken home, or your parents might have seemed very distant from each other, so you didn't get a kind of a role model energy to show you what a really close, loving relationship was. On the other hand, having done all of this and seen all of this, you're very empathic and you're very psychic around relationships. So the healing there could come from that level of awareness. But as I said, a bit like some of the other planets around the balance of giving and taking, make sure that you look after your own healing as well. So that's the planets and the signs in the 7th house. Now I'm going to do the timestamp to talk about the pile choice. So welcome back to everybody who maybe wasn't wanting to listen to the overview of astrology and just wanted to get to the reading. So without further ado, let's talk about that. I'll put down the numbers for those that are drawn to numbers. Like I've done with most of the readings in this series, I've been sort of going through ace through to 10, and then I'll use the core cards for 11 and 12 for the house concerned. So in this case, I'm using 7s, and I'm using them across the suits. So it may be a way, if nothing else is drawing to you and you're not sure, if you know what sign you have in the 7th house, say for argument's sake you knew it was an air sign, then you may choose to go with the swords one here because that is representing air. Now this does not mean the other cards that are intuitively pulled will connect only to air signs at all. I don't know what they are under here. I'm just using it as one potential way to tune in if the imagery or some other thing doesn't draw you to it. So I've got each suit represented here, and so therefore the various signs. So for the first reading, for pile number 1, I have the 7 of Wands from the Flights of Fantasy Tarot, and so that's sort of representing fire energy. Now, as I say, this doesn't necessarily mean that a fire sign has to go here, either in terms of your sun or where the 7th house is. What I should also say too is that 7s in tarot, for those who are familiar with them, can be either very good or a little bit sort of questionable, not questionable, but a little bit challenging. Don't think about what the cards mean within this. I've only chosen them for their numerical value and suit value. So Flights of Fantasy, 7 of Wands for the first pile. The Rainbow Moon Tarot with 7 of Cups for the water sort of energy for pile 2. The 7 of Swords for the air energy from the Cute and Creepy Tarot for pile 3. And then for pile 4, I have the Pentacles, the 7 of Pentacles for earth energy from the Art of Adventure Tarot for pile 4. But as I say, it could be the imagery. You could know these decks and get drawn to that. You might be drawn to the numbers. If you feel drawn to more than one reading, by all means, go to more than one reading, whatever works for you. But when you know what ones, the timestamps are in the description box below. And just quickly before you go, if you haven't already jumped in to do that, just want to note that I am doing personal readings. You can get them through my Etsy store. And as I say occasionally when I talk about this, just a couple of things. The Etsy store is the only way to get a personal reading from me. The link is in the description box below. So if anybody tries to contact you pretending to be me, they're a scammer, so don't pay any attention to that. I won't contact you directly. You need to come to me via the Etsy store. The other thing I want to know is that if you do go to the Etsy store and you choose to get a reading, please put your email in the personalisation box, because I have had some issues where people have signed in using Apple, for instance, and it's come through with a relay email, and it's not always clear that people can get messages from me, let alone their readings. So it's really important to put your email in the personalisation box so I can make sure that I get the reading to you. So I just wanted to sort of say that as a note. And then beyond that, as I say, when you know what reading or readings you want to go to, the timestamps as always are in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome, pile one, to your reading. To start off with, we've got some cards here. Actually, I'll just move them a bit to make it clearer, that are about love and relationships in terms of, or relationships in terms of love and romance, basically. Some cards here that are around friends and family, and some cards here that are around career, because as I said, we'll have a look at each of those particular elements. So the first thing that I would say for you is that you love love and you have a lot of faith in love, and I think with good reason. It's interesting that two of the cards around sort of the almost programming or unconscious understanding of love, which I really like to use these two oracle decks. One's about vampires because of the intensity of vampiric sort of energy, and then also the fairy tale oracle because of how clear that can be about some of the things we've learned from childhood, is that both of them are about trust and faith. So the Wood Maiden story is about a very cheerful and loving and caring maiden who looks after her family and so forth, and is very hardworking, but does it all joyously, cares, loves deeply, loves openly. And one day she is met in the wood by a wood maiden, by a kind of a fairy type character who says, would you love to dance? And she says yes, and she dances so much with her that she loses concept of time. And then when she sort of gets out of the dancing, the joy of that, she realizes that some of her work has been neglected, some of her sort of family are now in problems and so forth. But the Wood Maiden actually then gifts her with some gold, and that therefore means that all can be resolved. So the whole story in terms of a programming thing is to get that balance between your sense of responsibility and love and your sense of joy and love. And you're very much someone who takes both of those very seriously. You do love love, you do love those that you love very passionately, and you're very protective of them. But on the other hand, you also want to enjoy love and you want to enjoy the feeling of it. And getting that into balance is part of your seventh house energy. And with faith, this is also about having that confidence and that belief. I think at a really core level, you do believe in love and you know that things will work out, even if sometimes you feel like you didn't get the balance right or didn't find the right partner. With Gabriel here, with the moon, very strong emotional connection. I'm getting a quite strong Cancerian feeling about this because of the protective energy and because of the moon with sort of like emotional sides of things. But it don't have to be Cancer, but there's some sort of sense of that protective energy that you bring to those that you love. Very strong psychic link too, so there could be Pisces, but definitely a sense that once you love with true commitment and with true faith. And I think with the 10th house, it may be through work that you meet the person that you love, or it may be it's a balance between the love that you have for a partner, your romantic other half and so forth, and what your love for your career is. You may meet through your career, or you may have to find that balance between being very much in the world, very seen in the world, and you may be known in the world for how much you love. So you could be someone, for instance, who was an incredible songwriter, and in your career this sort of sense of love and uplifting joy, particularly with a dancing sort of element there, or an entertainer or something. You're seen, you're known, you're associated with that. That's a possibility. It doesn't have to be the case. But for some of you, it may be that in some way your career or how you're known connects to love. But for others, I think it is that balance between your love of love and what you're trying to do in a career, what you're trying to do to provide for yourself and those you love and so forth. But you're very, very constant. And I think my sense here is that you have a sense of confidence in love that is well placed. We will see what Spirit wants to say about the energy around love and romance for you at the moment, but this feels very, very positive. Similarly around family and friends, so we've got Vesta, which is all about hearth and home and keeping the home fires burning and that sort of protective energy. I think many who come here, you're probably already in a relationship, maybe even have a family. If not, this is going to be a focus of your life and something that you're very, very devoted to. And family really matters. Like if anybody, you might sort of squabble within your family as families do, but if anybody said anything about anybody in your family, there would be hell to pay. You're very, very protective on that level, but very private about it. Yeah, and even with your friends, it may well be that you're someone who has a lot of different sorts of friends and they don't necessarily know about each other with the 12th house there. There's a sort of a sense of privacy and a very strong psychic connection. In fact, like with Gabriel coming up twice, you're very psychic and very prophetic probably. So there's something about that around your family and friends. You may in fact have got psychic abilities through your family line as well. With illumination, there's a sort of a sense of sort of spiritual pathways and spiritual knowledge that comes through in that sort of sense. And there's change energy with Uriel, with Uranus connected with it. But I think any change around hearth, home, family is done in private. So if there is ever a kind of an imbalance around that or a separation or anything like that, you will not show this to the world at all, whereas you would show your belief in love to the world. But anything where you're changing anything that's established in your relationship life around family or friends, that's private. And if you fell out with friends, you're not going to gossip about it with others. It's just not going to happen. You're very private about any changes involved with that. But for the most part, you are more around helping transform those you care about on an almost psychic and spiritual level rather than change per se. I think you're very constant. In work, it's interesting because here in love, and you love, we've got the 10th house, so a focus on work. In work, in career relationships, we have the moon, so there's a focus on emotional energy and very much connected to Gabriel. So I do think that many of you may meet your partner in a work context. I also think that many of you may do work that is connected with sort of psychic energy, divination, or matters of the heart. So some of you may be known in the world because you help with relationships, relationship counselling as like a therapist, a healer in that sort of level. There's some sort of connection between the two here, and there's a depth of understanding, a kind of psychic depth of understanding. And what you're doing around the work aspect of it and in your work relationships is helping people with their authenticity, I think, because we've got Nuada as the kind of God representation of your kind of energy in career sort of relationships. And Nuada was a god who lost his arm and wasn't going to be able to be the leader of his group because you had to be perfect to be that. And then somebody fashioned for him a metal arm, and that then meant that he met the standards and was able to rise. So this is either that in your career you do a lot to fit in to the standards of others, you understand them on a kind of very psychic level, and you do that to fit in and to rise. Or it could be that you are helping other people heal and, as I say, come to their level of authenticity. Because of your innate optimism, I feel like that latter is quite often the case. But certainly it is possible beyond that you're in careers where there are very set ideas about what you're meant to be like. And I think you may be more intuitive than maybe what the sort of overt career connections are. But you can fit in, you can shape shift if you need to. So your relationship energy seems to be about spreading this confidence and caring and protection to people and making them feel more that they fit in. So I think you're very much someone who gives a lot. Now, if you did listen to the introduction around the astrology, there are quite a few planets in the 7th house, which mean that you need to get in balance what you give and what you get. And I do think there maybe is a little bit of that, particularly around the balance of what your heart needs and what you find in career. So, but overall, I think it's a very positive energy. Let's have a look and see what we get with tarot. So we're going to ask about each aspect one at a time, and then we're going to ask about anything unconscious across all elements of relationships that Spirit would like you to know. So we'll start firstly with some energy around your love relationships, love and romance. Okay. So it's certainly in the first 3 cards here picking up this energy of optimism, and of friendships and so forth. I think you will find your your love of your life, if you haven't already, through career or possibly through sort of friends. There's this sort of energy of drawing people in, being able to enjoy similar ways of doing things, similar ways of looking at stuff, and a kind of a meeting of the minds with the Ace of Swords. Four of Wands suggests you bring great harmony into relationships in general. And again, this picks up this optimism that there's more joy for you around relationships than pain. Having said that, it does look like you may have recently gone through a breakup, and you've got the freedom energy out of that, which is good, but it took a little bit of a toll on this innate optimism, because we've got the Eight of Swords reversed, which suggests you're coming out of feeling constrained about what you think and feel and being able to express that with something that broke up. And it's, you know, it may be recent, it may be quite a long time ago, and you're still carrying a bit of that. But overall, there's a very optimistic thing here. If you aren't with someone at the moment, I think someone could be coming in, but the way that you'll know them and meet them first is through a meeting of the minds. It's not necessarily going to be a kind of, you walk in the room and you want to, you know, fall over in sort of awe around sort of instant lust or something. It's more like there's going to be a meeting of the minds and come from some sort of friendship or group, potentially, as I say, around work, if you aren't with someone. If you are with someone, then there's new ideas and new energy coming in, and there seem to be a lot of people around. I feel like this optimism and so forth, and whether it is coming from a connection to work or whether it's around friendships as well, I just feel like there's a lot of joy and enjoyment of others and friends and all that sort of thing around, which is helping to mitigate that energy. So again, I get a very positive feeling around love for you, even if you've suffered a reversal. That's not where you're going to land. Let's ask about friends and family. Okay, so I think this might be over here picking up whatever this residual thing is from a breakup. With the King of Swords reversed, there may have been someone who you did feel on a sort of intellectual level at first seemed to be exactly the right fit for you, and maybe came through either career or friendship and, you know, and that kind of thing, but they didn't turn out to be very honest by the looks of things. So, and there may have been some shifts around your friendship circle as a result. This looks classically like a situation where, you know, you've met somebody through friends, and then there's been shifts in your friendship relationships if you broke up. So there's something around it. There's something around, there's been a lesson you've learnt, and I think it's connected to your love nature, but certainly around relationships and friendships and what is solid, what can be relied on. Some of your friends do draw a lot from your positivity. Some of your friends are not as positive as you, but they enjoy the connection with you. But I do think that there is a little bit of a warning here about not giving too much and not being sort of drawn into that, because you are psychic, you know, you are very intuitively connected. So even though you are ultimately a very positive person, if you're around people who are emotionally stuck, then that can drain you a bit. Having said that, there's a very strong connection coming in, and I think it will potentially move into something around love if you aren't in a love relationship now. So if you aren't in a love relationship now, I think via your friendship circle or by your family circle, one or other, there is a very strong emotional connection, very mature emotional person, probably very positive in the same way that you are. There will be a meeting of the minds around this before there's anything else, but this person has a lot of depth. It's very poetic. I always think of like Byron when I see this, but not necessarily. I mean, I feel this person is probably a little bit more constant than Byron was, but that kind of, there's a romantic side and a meeting of the minds and so forth. Really great communication. So there's definitely that. I think this is also you to some degree. I think that you have a depth of emotion, definitely, you know, with the emotional sort of cards in the career sort of side of things, the 12th house in the friends and family. It's not shown to everyone. I think that you would have a very lively sort of friendship circle, but only some really get to know you and see this sort of like heart of a poet that's here. But you're very, very strong in how you communicate with other people, and you can manifest the sort of relationships that you want on a friendship level. And I think there's something for some of you like a psychic ability, a magical ability through your lineage as well. Okay, and let's have a look then at career. Relationships in your career. Oh, we've got the moon again. Wow, okay. Okay. So the first thing I get is for many of you, in the probably not too distant future, or certainly, in the next year or so, I think many of you may shift where you work, actually, as a result of a disconnect between what you really want in your heart and what is on offer. And the reason I say that is, with the fact that we had Nuada there, where I had this feeling that, you are very adept at being able to fit in and fit with what people want. But I think that there's almost a sense of becoming more and more aware of what you personally want to do. And then we have the Knight of Pentacles and the Knight of Cups reversed here. It suggests to me that there's something impermanent around where you are at the moment and some of your work relationships. Now, if you aren't moving on, it could be that, an organisation you're in changes a lot and people leave for that reason. And so it's people leaving your work circle. It's possible either way. I again feel that for some of you, there was a relationship, a love relationship, that didn't work out, and if you're still in the same organisation, that may mean you leave, or maybe they left. But there's something impermanent around some of this, and there's a closure out on something to bring in a new cycle with the World card here. But the World card is also an excellent card. It does suggest that relationships around your career may be extended beyond, sort of national boundaries or whatever. You may be involved now or at some point in some form of career that has connections across the world, overseas and so forth. But there is something about where is your heart, what is your psychic connection to this and so forth. With the moon and the Eight of Cups, I do feel for many of you that you can fit in anywhere. You're brilliant at that. Your optimism, your clarity, all of that sort of thing works very, very well wherever you are. But I think you're going to start thinking about, where do you want a longer term connection? Where do you not want to feel you have to fit in, but where you can be truly yourself? And for many of you, it may have a very, very strong spiritual basis. You could even do spiritual work, as I said. But there's a sort of a mystery for you that you're sorting out. And I think the relationships in your career at the moment are part of what's showing you that. I just feel like you feel, of all the areas in your life, it's the one where you can't be as authentic. I feel like you've kind of sorted out a lot of it around your love nature. You're very well placed around family and friends for the most part. But I feel like over here, you feel like you have to wear a few too many masks or something. So I think you're working that out. And you'll work out emotionally what that means. And do you move on, or do other changes around it sort that out for you? But I think that's the one area where there's a little bit of real thought to be given. So given all of that, I'm just going to pull 3 more cards around anything unconscious across these that Spirit wants you to be aware of. Ace of Cups. Nine of Pentacles reversed, and Strength. Okay, so you may even, when I said to you, you've got this really sunny disposition and you're very much, someone who loves love and you're someone who's very good at all of that, you might have thought me, because there's almost a sense here, like it's almost unconscious, the strength that you have around love and your need to be in connection with people. Nine of Pentacles reverse suggests that you really don't want to be on your own, but that the strength that you gain from love is significant. So it could be picking up for many of you that there's been a difficult relationship you've just broken up from. If you are in a relationship, it might be saying, to some degree, without meaning to, you're almost taking it for granted, that you aren't recognizing how strong you are in that connection and how important it is for you to manifest what you need to have those connections and so forth. But it's because there's nothing really kind of like negative in what's unconscious. It's just more like maybe you maybe don't realize how unusual you are, in as much as you have this really strong positive view, very strong heart center, very strong connection to others, and you're going through this process of like really working out what that means around your career and so forth, that you may underestimate the strength of your heart in really defining you. Okay, so that's interesting. So what we also want to have a look at is what's sort of working really positively around this, and then also what could be healed. Actually, I might start, in fact, with what could be healed. So there's a couple of decks that I wanted to look at. So in every sort of relationship type reading, we do need to look at this sort of stuff. I think you're pretty okay, but there might be sort of something around a past relationship, and there may, as I say, be something around career. So we're going to pull a couple of cards around what could be healed from two different decks, one which is about healing per se and one which is sort of like positive sort of magical energy. So we have take off your masks. I'm going to put that over there with career because I think it's connected to that. And we have sadness. Okay, so you're not innately sad, but there's something that, and maybe it really rocked you. Maybe it was so different to your belief in love, your caring about love and so forth. There's some sadness, from something that didn't work out, or, somebody who didn't understand you or something that just needs to be healed and let go of, because overall it's such a positive energy. But there is something about where can you be authentic? So, and I think the main area probably for most of you is around career. But if that resonates into a love relationship at the moment or into friends and family, it's about balance. Because I just think that a lot of people look to you for the innate joy. This is interesting too, that we have the 12th house around friends and family. This may be showing that when you have sadness, you don't share it with people. They don't see it. You're very, very private, even with your friends and family. So they are still coming to you for the sunshine while you're actually feeling this, and you need to sort of shift that and understand that, you have friends and people, and it might be worth you getting their support for a change. I'm just going to move that a bit so that the ring light doesn't obscure it too much. Okay, so I also want to get some sort of magical energy around what could be healed for you. Spirituality. Well, I think your spirituality is very strong, and that's part of the way that you can heal energy. If you have sadness and so forth, commune with Archangel Gabriel, actually. I think Archangel Gabriel is very strong for you in terms of supporting and understanding and getting the intuition and wisdom to move through what needs to be healed. And then we've also got compassion. So I think for you, because I think you're highly compassionate, to be frank, I think that you need a bit of compassion for yourself. As I say, I just think the thing that and I'd said this quite a bit in the astrology overview, that there's quite a few planets in the 7th house that make people maybe do too much for others as opposed to what they need. And I think that you fall into that category. So you need to sort of build that, use your spirituality to find that compassion for yourself. Okay, so then let's look at some color energy that's very positive for you. So what's working very, very well? Actually, before that, sorry, there's one other deck that I wanted to use. I'm just going to pause the video. Sorry, Pile 1, I thought I had everything laid out, but then I realised I didn't have one. So this is also a spiritual deck. So it's firstly, I'm going to use a card from it both in this and then also what's working positively. So around what also could heal for you around relationships. Got flourish. Conditions are perfect for growth and expansion in business or situations you're passionate about. So it's again pointing towards business, career. There's something, you are meant to flourish. You are meant to be able to take off your mask. You are meant to be able to be more authentic than maybe you feel at the moment within your workplace. Okay, so on that very positive basis that you're meant to flourish, let's have a look at some color goddess energy and then also some other color energy. I just wanted to use color decks for what's really positive around relationships for you. So we have silver, insight, illumination, and reflection. So I think that very much fits. I'm pretty sure we had illumination here with Uriel. Yes. So there's something, you are very psychic. It's like part of this is your psychic ability and your understanding about what's going on. So let that illumination come through. And then we also get burgundy, ambition, honor and respect. So I just think all of this is pointing to some stuff around career. Because I think if you're not in a love relationship, I think you will be in one soon. You're kind of very well balanced with all of that. And I think by and large, except for maybe that you give a bit too much sometimes with family and friends, you'll find. But there's something about you being a bit more ambitious for yourself in your career that keeps coming up. Okay, let's get a couple of other color cards for you. Sign, build your confidence. And I think this is around career. And green, revitalize your nervous system. So if people are draining you a bit, which they could be, then get out into nature, all of that sort of thing to revitalize your nervous system and so forth. To nourish yourself as much as you nourish other people. But I do think a lot of this is around career. And we'll get one more of these cards as well for what is really positive for you. Home, an exciting change in home or lifestyle being positive, you know, improvements and new energy. So either it means your home life, you know, with Vesta is very well favoured, which is likely with Vesta there, or things around your home and being at home. This is where you can revitalise yourself. This is where you can build your confidence. This is also, I think, for many of you, where you've got psychic and spiritual ability. There's something in your family line, I think, around that. Okay, so to close out, I want to get some astrology energy, broad astrology energy around relationships for you, and then we're going to use some the love oracles, because this is about relationships, for some advice from somebody in history, and it could be humorous or it could be very profound, we'll see. But firstly, for pile 1, what astrology energy is around their relationships and their 7th house energies? 8th house. So there's a connection between your 7th house and 8th house. Water, you may have a water sign in the 7th house, quite likely actually with some of these. This is what I felt at the beginning, but you don't have to, but there's a water element around it. 11th house, connecting to your friends a lot. 10th house, your career. So, all right. And the moon. Okay, and the moon with the 10th house. There's definitely something for you here around your emotional connection to your career and being able to be yourself and being able to bring things to the surface, all working in a highly psychic or highly emotional sort of area. There's something like that. Or potentially with the 8th house, for some of you, might have said this at the beginning, think forensic almost. There's something like that. You can really get to the depths. You really can see into things. So, but yeah, there's something transformative and coming to the surface around career. And I think it'll be very good for you with the 10th house. It will be very much about who you're meant to be in the world. And your friends are likely to be very supportive of it. But it's getting into connection with the water energy at that depth level in that environment, I think. It's pointing to it over and over. So pile 1, to finish off, we just want to get, as I say, a card from the love oracle. So this is different people in history, and it's just meant to be fun. So, you know, it could be very profound in the advice I give, or it could just be funny. So take or leave whatever it says. It's just a humorous way to finish off the reading. Zelda Fitzgerald. Okay, so the wife of Scott F. Fitzgerald, the writer of the Great Gatsby anyway. So a icon of the jazz age, highly socially connected and so forth, but very, very emotional and very, I think, intuitive and so forth as well. Her advice to you, pile 1, is you'll only be bored if you're boring. So enjoy yourself, enjoy this love, enjoy the dance, you know, right at the beginning with that fairy tale oracle. She says life always needs a little drama and lots of dancing. I hadn't even read that yet. So I think it's very much saying make sure that you do get the joy in this. This is part of what is really kind of irresistible about you and will bring the right love to you. And she says, think only of today, why worry about tomorrow? So I think this is be in the moment, flourish, be happy. Part of what might be going on around your career relationships is that you're being very careful around that because of consequences. But I think this is saying that you'll be able to find the way to be more authentic and emotionally connected to that and to the relationships that you have there when you start to really assert this other joyful energy you have even into that space. So I hope that resonates for you, pile 1, and I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in other episodes of the You Through the Houses series. And if this is the first one you've come across, the ones from 1 to 6 are already in a playlist, which will also be added to, so you can check those out as well. And the others will come on a monthly basis through to the 12th house, which will be in December. So hopefully I'll see you in one or more of those as well, and in other pick a card readings more generally. And apart from that, I wish you well. Welcome, pile 2, to your reading. So these 4 cards are around romantic relationships. These 3 are around family and friends, and these 3 are around relationships at work. And you guys are interesting, I have to say. There's a lot of deep change, strong, almost sort of like combative, not necessarily in a bad way, but combative, challenge, cut through things, get to the core of things, transformative energy around relationships for you in general. You may well have like Pluto in the seventh house, or maybe Pluto and Saturn potentially, or Scorpio there, or something transformative anyway. And it comes right from your childhood, I have to say, right from your childhood. And I would think from past lives as well. So why I'm saying that is, firstly, looking at the energy around romance. We have, firstly, I use the Vampire Oracle and the Fairy Tale Oracle as part of this, because the Vampire Oracle shows to me that kind of obsessive connection and so forth that love tends to be. And the Fairy Tale Oracle to me is always a really good underpinning of what programming one almost has around love. There's a lot of sort of like things from like the childhood stories that we heard, or the movies that we watched when we were young and so forth, that have a very strong impact on us. So I always think it's a good way of working out part of the energy that might be a bit unconscious. And, we've got Pisces, and then we've got Zavkiel with motivation. So what we have here, Hansel and Gretel had to learn to survive. And ancient is connecting, maybe to ancient sort of knowledge, understanding, things in the family. I do think there's something connecting to the family here, and family lineage and family expectations. And I think they were probably pretty full on, to be honest. And you may not have always felt, either for yourself as a child within your family, or maybe when you were looking at your parents' relationship, that things were necessarily safe. Now, I don't mean that has to be really terrible, but with Hansel in the story, Hansel and Gretel are actually neglected, or they're left in the woods by their parents. There's this sort of sense of separation from that. And so that kind of thing potentially around relationships could show that for love, that you've either came from a broken home, or you felt your parents were distant in some way. You might have Chiron in the seventh house as well, actually. But there's definitely a sense of you had to learn to look after yourself. And with the ancient thing here, you certainly understood your own kind of psychic, spiritual power and how you could do that. But the thing about that is that it could be a little bit sort of isolating as well. And with Pisces, highly psychic. And you are able to motivate others with motivation here, but we've got Saturn connected to Zavkiel, which is this sort of sense of sternness and so forth, and kind of almost standing in one's own strength. So I feel like there is a very warm inner heart here, but you protect it a great deal, because I think that you've seen some patterning that was a little bit isolating. And as I say, very, very deep. I'm getting for some of you that, there could have been sort of stuff where you felt very out of step sort of spiritually with your family or something like that. You definitely need to find people who have a similar sort of like psychic and almost spiritual depth to them to be able to understand you, to be frank. And when you do, I think that's highly motivating. But I think for you, it may be hard to feel that you can commit to a relationship, because there's some patterning there. Now, this doesn't mean you can't. I'm just saying that there are some challenges around this for you. It will be interesting to see what we get with tarot, because that will tell us where it is at the moment. But there is this sort of patterning there where I think you felt you had to work out how to survive on your own. And you became very strong as a result, and very psychic as a result, and very much a self-starter. But I think you may be difficult to get close to, I think, pile 2. And I understand why. I don't mean that as a criticism, but I understand why. And then we have a similar energy running across the other. So here, around family and friends, we've got Jeanne d'Arc, Joan of Arc, highly psychic, highly connected, but for some reason, had to sort of fight for sort of really big things, revolutionary sort of issues, and had to be brave to go into the battle. So some of you may have actually felt embattled in your home life. This might be where this is coming from. You had to find your own sort of sense of love and self. Some of you might have been in dysfunctional families or narcissistic families or something like that. But there's definitely an energy of needing to stand up and be in a battle. And so even with friendships, like I think you would have great and strong friendships with those who had the same cause as you and were prepared to go into the same cause. So I think you may get friends around you who have similar philosophical ideals and who want to fight for a cause. You may be someone who finds friends within causes and so forth. And that would be very, very strong. And and together, collectively, you can manifest a lot. You're sort of here to do something in the world. It's almost like whatever you went through as a child, which is having an imprint on your love relationships in a way, was nevertheless almost like the kind of refining fire that was necessary for what you were going to do, and because it's coming up over here around career as well too. So you're here with a mission, and that permeates your relationships. So those, your friends and family who share your mission, you move forward. But Joan of Arc had her enemies as well too. And I just feel for some of you, you're almost like a stranger in a strange land in your own family. There's something about that for some of you. And then in career, you see, you're all about with set, chaos, change, revolution. Many of you may be interested in like political revolution, social justice, that kind of thing. Or you may work around change in some way within your career, or you may find yourself often in chaotic, changing work environments, because there's something about your strength that operates like iron filings to a magnet over to this and shows up with that. Again, very deep, very psychic connections. Some of you may work literally in spiritual things or magic, like high magic, that kind of thing. Alchemy, like some of you may bring that energy and that knowledge and that wisdom into your career in some way and into the relationships that are in your career. So it could be very, very literal, but if it's not literal like that, you could be working in major political change. You could be working in things like forensic detective work, that kind of area. You could be working, because the 8th house is about other people's resources, in things like the financial markets and dealing with it, finding that balance of alchemy with the chaos and the speed of that. But there's something very tumultuous and revolutionary about the relationships that you have. So I sort of feel as though around friends and family, well, let's say friends and career, because family I think connects back to this, but around friends and family, you would be drawn to other revolutionary types, other change agents, other people who can look at the depths, other people who have a really strong courage. You're incredibly courageous, actually, really courageous. And or people who are into similar sort of occult sort of things. So there's that kind of energy, but you're all about change. And I feel like what you learned in the childhood, which is kind of a bit of both of these areas, was to be the refining fire to get you go there. But the issue where it becomes the most difficult in a way to manage is around love relationships, because you can draw friends to you and you maybe walk away if you need to from the family relationships, get a bit distant and aloof if you need to, that aren't serving you. And you can go into the belly of the beast and find the right people, the comrades in arms around career. You're very strong. I think you scare a lot of people, actually. So you can do all of that, but around love, that's where we get the kind of thing, does it make you the lone warrior? Yeah, like how do you find that balance? So let's see what tarot wants to tell us, because it's a really, I mean, it's a wonderfully strong energy. You're wonderfully strong and wonderfully capable, but I just, when we're talking about relationships, there's sort of like some tenderness in this area that I feel that you're almost kind of having to hide away. It's there, but you're having to hide it away. So let's just see what the energy is right now around each. So we're going to start with love, then we'll do family and friends, and then we'll do career. But firstly, for pile 2, what does the love energy around relationships look like for them? Okay, so this is pointing with the 6 of Cups to something from childhood. I think most of you, if you come to the right reading, there was something right from childhood in your family. So it'll be interesting to see what family card clarifies 6 of Cups. But there's something there. I feel like there was one or more people, like parents, that was emotionally absent or actually absent, with the Chancellor of Cups, which is like the King of Cups reversed, or emotionally manipulative. There was something like that is carrying over into your love relationships at the moment, and it makes it hard for you to make a decision. I think you definitely have options. You may even be in a relationship at the moment, but you're trying to work out whether you think it can last potentially. And it's like you kind of always want to hold the choice in your hands, just like this character is like contemplating the crystals, which is like pentacles. And contemplating the choice. The Ace of Crystals here suggests that there's always that sort of sense of where's the escape clause if I need it. Because I feel like you almost needed that. You needed to almost dissociate or separate yourself out. And because of some of the intensity of what you do in other parts of your life, you need to always know there's an escape door when it's necessary. So I think you're trying to work out what this means emotionally, because you feel a little bit at the hands of fate. Now, the good thing about the Wheel of Fortune is there could be something good coming in, so a choice that allows you to feel more grounded, which would be lovely. If that's the case, then give the Ace of Crystals time to develop. So if there's someone around you, or if someone comes in soon. If you're in a relationship and you feel part way in it and part way out of it, then look back to what these patterns were that you saw from childhood, I think. And I think you might kind of see what was going on there. Because, like, as I say, you either might have had a broken home or a distant parent in some way, or you might have in fact had a lot of emotional hyperbole where it was all about the great love between the parents, but that made you feel a bit separate. There's just something that's made you feel that you have to kind of stand on your own. But I do think there's an option. There's an option either right now with you or coming up to allow you to think about this and think about the patterning and so forth. So let's have a look at family and friends. Okay. So I think this is picking up family sort of stuff. Around friends, I think you find it hard to make decisions, because I think that the reality is you go into friendships because they are part of the battle with you. And it can be sometimes hard to hold on to them longer term for that reason. It's kind of like, I feel like you're always change, you're always revolution, you're always moving on. And possibly because of that around friendships, there's a lot of kind of dynamism as well too. But I mean, it's not a bad energy to have Four of Crystals reversed. It does suggest that you're kind of opening up and thinking about how you want that to be and what you want to manifest. So that's good. But you seem a bit undecided about certain people around you at the moment. I do think that you and your comrades in arms have been through a bit of a battle of some sort recently. But like the good news is that's kind of over. You know, that's coming out. You can now work out what you want, how you want to establish those friendships going forward. And that could connect to really nice long-term friendships. But I think this is, again, picking up this energy from family. I feel like you were in just a very volatile environment. I mean, I think sometimes it was like, oh, we're the perfect family. And maybe that was what was shown to the world, when behind the scenes there was all this drama and so forth. There was maybe a very conservative idea about how do you present the family with the Knight of Daggers or Knight of Swords reversed there. So we have to appear like the really happy family, but behind the scenes, it was just a lot of drama all the time. Or you might be trying to sort out what would it be to be a happy family, because you know that you have to break it out of the conventions of the past. So when I was saying I wanted to see how that connected, we've got the Knight of Daggers reversed, which is where you can get a bit stuck in the conventional patterns. And so there is a thing there about thinking about the patterns of your family and so forth, and releasing the drama that's around things, so that you can really look at that Ace of Crystals and decide whether or not this is something that can grow, if it's a relationship around you. Okay, so let's have a look at career, because even in career, as I say, it looks like you're in very volatile sort of environments. Okay, so one of the things for you in general, because you've had to learn how to survive emotionally, and then it flows into other things, is that you have become very strong, very charismatic, very much a leader. With Chancellor of Wands, that's like the King of Wands. You draw a lot of people in. You're likely to be in a leadership position or end up in a leadership position if you aren't already in your career. That's part of who you are. And you can certainly draw people into you. This is the alchemy or whatever, and get to the depths and so forth with that particular card. But you are also about dealing with emotionally blocked things. See, what I think is happening is that the relationships you have at work, and in fact even what you do with your career, is almost like it's mirroring out what you experienced in your childhood, or you experienced in relationships in general. Because if this isn't childhood relationships, then you just draw a lot of really hyperbolic, histrionic sort of people. So, and that's why you kind of feel like you always have to be a bit separate and lead out rather than be part of the group. But in either case, it's like you deal with unblocking emotional things, that eighth house, as I say, forensic sort of stuff, psychology, those sort of issues. You're very, very good at that. And you can certainly help people come out of that sort of thing. But you feel like you have to do it on your own because you don't entirely trust the environment that you're in with the Page of Daggers reversed. You feel like communication is not clear. That's why you like to get to the depths of things and so forth. And if you feel that you've been betrayed or someone's been dishonest with you, God help them in the workplace. Like you are, I mean, I don't mean that you're going to be terrible, but like you will not take any prisoners. You want honesty and authenticity, because there's just this sort of feeling that you have that all relationships end up in a battle because of maybe not enough mutual respect and caring. So there's just something, I think that there's really a sense around you with relationships that you feel like they're always transformative, always a battle. And as I say, I think for most of you it comes from youth. And it's not meant as a criticism, it's just understanding, maybe use that energy particularly around your career and with causes with friends, so that you can lighten up a bit for yourself around love, because it does look to me like there's an option coming in that could be very good. What you don't want to do is project onto it all this other stuff. So let's ask what you're not seeing. Okay. So you're not seeing the sort of brilliance of your mind and how much potential but equally how much that potential and brilliance of your mind can actually cut and work against you. With any ace, it's a blessing. So there is a blessing around your mind and the way that you can do with things, but it's like at the moment you're not making it work for you. And you could have more connections than you think. You're not seeing how much you isolate yourself just because of patterns and how you think you're different and how you think you're in an environment where you have to do that because you have to be careful what you say to anybody. It's hard to be authentic. So I think quite a bit of this is probably working out in your career at the moment, maybe a bit around friends and family, but I think a lot of it's working out in some major change around where you are. But I think that Spirit is saying there are people you could connect with. You don't have to be so isolated. Don't use the brilliance of your mind and this kind of almost like set of boundaries you put around yourself, using that, to make you feel that you can't connect to others or that you have to walk on eggshells. So there's just understanding how this is affecting you. You are someone who will be drawn to volatile environments, I think, and it's part of your life path, I think. But having said that, you don't have to be alone. Okay, so now we want to have a look at some energy around what needs to be healed, and then also what is a real blessing around your relationship energy. So we're going to start firstly with a couple of cards from a deck that is about straight healing. Then I'm going to use some spiritual decks for some other healing energy for you. So firstly, beauty, okay, and discover your life purpose. Okay, so I think that you kind of have to some degree discovered your life purpose, but you've maybe made it more volatile than it needs to be. You are meant to be a change agent. You are very courageous. You're very brave. You're very clever at how to sort of survive and thrive and all of those sorts of things. But maybe connecting it back to your sort of spiritual wisdom and your heart might soften some of this energy and then allow the beauty in. I think you are likely to be very beautiful, either like physically or in your soul. Like there's a great purity to this, just like there was with Joan of Arc. But it might be that you need to feel more beautiful. And in discovering that life purpose, not always being in battle, but discovering that life purpose, that could help do that for you. Understanding the beauty you have. I just feel that for most of you, you didn't get that kind of approbation and support in your home for some reason, but understanding this will help you heal. Okay, let's look at some spiritual healing energy for you. Happiness, yeah. I think, your spirit team want you to be happy. They feel like, you're so courageous, you're so brave, you're just so knowledgeable, so skilled, but you've made life a battle. And I think you're just meant to learn certain things, earlier in your life, all through some relationship. If this wasn't a thing from your family, then there was some very major and possibly a bit traumatic relationship that made you feel this way. But either way, you're actually meant to sort of see your inner beauty and be happy, like not feel like everything has to be a battle. And serenity, yeah, happiness and serenity. Because, I mean, I think you are going to go in and out of battles. I think that's part of who you are, but you need to find that happy place, that sort of centered place, and that place where you can have good relationships. Because I really think Spirit thinks that there is a potentially very good relationship around you. But you know, if you're in it, you're not fully in it. And if you haven't met it yet, you might not let it come that close if you don't realize this. So I'm going to pull a card from the Rainbow Oracle for an energy around healing for you. I'll also pull a card from this deck as well when we're looking at the positive energies. But firstly, an energy for pile 2 to heal around relationships. Duality. In a world of duality sits truth, a place where love dances in unity with its own shadow. Yeah. You've really given a lot of energy to the battle and to the shadow and to dealing with that, and you're very acute and knowledgeable about that, and it makes you very courageous. But there is duality. You need the happiness, the serenity, the beauty as well. So to help with this, let's get some positive energy. So firstly, a couple of colour goddess energies for you. Indigo, discovery, intuition, perception. So all of this psychic ability, and you have significant psychic ability, is part of what's going to help you. Is part of what's going, because if you think about it, there is a degree to which with psychic energy that you reach out into the world and you get energy from the world. So I think that there's definitely a sense that you can connect in that way and find the people who are more like you and truer to you. We've also got emerald, fortune, luck, and luxury. So you're meant to be lucky. You're meant to be successful. I think you will succeed in all these battles, but you have some time out for beauty and happiness and serenity. You know, like you don't have to go from one battle to the next. You know, you can actually enjoy life a bit. Life doesn't have to be so earnest. And like, you know, I'm a very serious person, so I know what this energy is like to some degree. And really, life can be fun as well. So let's get some other colour energy around you as well. I was particularly looking at colour for the positive side of things. Watermelon. Have fun with your inner child. Yeah. Your inner child's had a lot of wounding, I've got to say. If you've come to the right reading, you'll know what this is. So have fun with that. Remember your beauty. Remember you are beautiful. Remember what happiness means to you. And magenta, connect to your deepest inner knowing, because you have a lot of freaking inner knowing, you guys. Really, you do. And it's like ancient occult knowledge and everything. But part of that deepest inner knowing is also how to heal and find the beauty in the inner child. So it's use it for you too. It's like somehow you decided you were just here for everybody else. Okay, let's get another card from the Rainbow Oracle, this time around positive energy for you, the blessings that you have around relationships. Emotional tapestry. Your emotions are a delicate tapestry that weave growth, awareness, and wisdom into your life. So yeah, that's Piscean energy, the 8th house. You really are emotionally rich and resonant. You've just hidden it away. But if you allow that, that's part of your inner beauty. That's part of what will bring the happiness and serenity to you. I really feel this quite strongly. I really want you to see that inner child and the beauty of that inner child, and know that courage and ability you have is wonderful, but it's colouring your relationships to a degree that you're not getting the joy out of it that you could. Okay, so to finish off, we're going to get some astrology energy around your relationship patterns, and then we're going to use the love oracles, which is a bit of an amusing deck, so hopefully that lightens up what's been a pretty heavy reading. But let's see what astrology energy your spirit team would like to talk about in relation to your relationships, pile 2. 2nd house, Chiron, that doesn't surprise me that came up. Sagittarius, 10th house, 1st house. Okay, so a lot of this is around your career. A lot of it is showing up in your career, I think, as I sort of felt as this was going. A lot of it gets sublimated into there. You do need to think about how that makes you come across to people. I think that sometimes you might scare people a bit or intimidate them because you are so strong and you are so visionary. But there's sort of something about who you are in the world and how you're seen in the world that is worth thinking about here, and freeing some energies and healing yourself, because I think in doing that you may also help and heal others as well. Very strong philosophical background to you do, and very, very strongly connected to what you value, what your values are. You've probably learnt your values very young, but as I say, there's a wound that is associated with that. So there's nothing wrong with the cause that you're doing. I think you're on the side of right, but it is about how you heal yourself at the same time and you find freedom. Okay, so hopefully to help with that, we're going to finish off with a card from the Love Oracles, which has different people in history and their love advice or their relationship advice, and it could just be humorous, and as I say, this has been a pretty heavy reading, so that wouldn't be a bad thing, but there could also be something profound here for you too. So let's just see what we get. Joan of Arc. Oh my goodness. You can't write about this when this happens. So look, yeah, you're always going to be the visionary. You're always going to be the battler. You may be very connected to Joan of Arc, actually, in terms of, channeling energy or something like that, or maybe you lived in that time and so forth. Who knows? But she's coming up really strongly. But what she says is only settle for eternity. So yeah, if you're going to have a love relationship, I think it should be a really long-term one. But the only way you can have a really long-term one, find your soulmate and all that kind of thing, I mean, you've got all the psychic energy to do that, is to allow that sometimes it isn't a battle. Then she says, love and faith will defeat violence. And yes, they will. This is the thing, the love that you can have and the faith that you can bring to things, which I think you show in your friendships and in those family relationships that are productive around you. That can bleed both into your love relationships here and also into your career. And she says, be not afraid of fire and arrows or anything that may come. Well, I don't think you are. I think you're really courageous. And I think if you realize that and put that courage back into your love, then you bring it full circle and you bring that love to you. So I hope that resonates. As I say, it's a very heavy reading, but you're a very, very strong person. So I do hope that it resonates and it was helpful around relationships in your life. And I genuinely hope you find that great love, because I think you very, very richly deserve it. And I really hope that healing comes for you as well. So I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like and subscribe. I hope I see you in future episodes of You Through the Houses. And if this is the first one you've come across, I have houses 1 through to 6 already in a playlist, which this will be added into as well. And we'll do the rest as the year progresses. So check those out if you enjoyed this. So I hope I see you in future You Through the Houses readings and other pick a card readings more generally. Welcome, pile 3, to your reading. So these cards represent love and romance. These represent friends and family relationships, and these represent career. So starting with love and romance, you're a very interesting mix. You have incredibly high ideals and high standards and incredibly honourable around love. It very much matters to you to be committed and loyal and to be with the right person, somebody who has similar sort of viewpoints, similar values, and that even comes across around relationships in terms of friendships as well. I think that you have a real sense of what it is to be a good person in a love relationship, what that means, and you have incredibly high standards. You're likely to meet the great love of your life if you haven't already through friendships in some way, very sort of social connections. There could even be with you something about the social connections, like is it the right social connection for you? Is it the right sort of cultural background? Is it the right sort of set of political principles or something like that? There's something about the friendship connections you have and the standards you have about relationships that very much matter around love. And there's also the need for it to be entertaining, clever, witty. I think you're very, very smart. With Puss in Boots here, I'm using these two, like the fairy tale oracle is around kind of programming, around what we do in love and what we value in love. And the vampire oracle is around what tends to be the very intense connection. So the combination of these tells me with Puss in Boots, which was all about a very clever, witty companion for, a puss in boots, companion for the main character in this fairy story, was all about using wit and intelligence to bring about great outcomes. So you would definitely only love someone who is on a similar sort of intellectual level to you. You're likely to start relationships through wit, banter, that kind of thing. You may have Mercury in the 7th house potentially. Don't have to, but there's that kind of energy around it. Maybe Gemini in the 7th house as well. But you very much value that. You value high standards, high intelligence, a very good social kind of connection, and you like to see things transform. Part of what you want to see in terms of the intelligence is to be always improving. So it's kind of like, you in a relationship, in a love relationship, you would expect them to challenge you to improve, and you would expect to challenge them. There's this sort of sense of always evolving, always expanding the sort of like the level of dexterity with things, the level of cleverness, the right social connections, all that sort of thing. And I do think for many of you, I don't think you necessarily meet through work, because I think you're more likely to meet through friendships, when you meet the one. But I do think there's a connection between what is done in this space and having the good life and the connection to the career. So I think that there is a sort of sense of like, what are the right sort of jobs? And I don't mean any of this in a kind of cynical way. I think you have, you're very, very pure in what you want to do. But I think that you can see the interchangeability of a functioning, happy, long-standing relationship being one where you both evolve together and where you get you make each other smarter and you make yourselves more. It's kind of a power couple type of feeling about it in a way. That sort of effect that the two together can do more in the world and help each other more than being separate, because it is also about transformation for you. And many of you may be very creative. You could have come from a very creative family with the muses there, and this might be part of it. You might just, it kind of gives that sense of like, the intelligentsia, as they talk about, or the very creative sort of families and lineages and so forth, where you get very well educated and you have a broad range of skills or whatever, all of which permeate what you love and who you love. And there's a very inspirational aspect to it. You may also be an inspiration, I think, like a muse energy to somebody as well. But again, particularly likely a friend that then becomes something more for you. That is a possibility with the 11th house, which is about friendships, connecting to something like muse energy here about family and friends. But I think many of you either came from very creative families, or you had a family that did inspire you, or that encouraged your inspiration and so forth. Your values are very strongly connected, I think, to your family, and I think they're very positively connected with deep joy here with Haniel. There's a great deal of love, and your sense of love came from your family and the values of your family. So that's somehow connected with all of this, with these high standards and so forth. But very creative energy as well too. And I think around your friendships, the people that you like around you are people who have similar values and who really enjoy the arts and enjoy creativity and all of that kind of thing. In your career, you probably may go through a number of different sorts of careers or different sorts of cycles with Helios here. Helios is also about the sun, so again, a great deal of creativity energy around it. You may have a creative pursuit, and that often does have cycles to it. Sort of, if you're a musician, you go on tour for a while, and then you spend other cycles creating music and so forth. So there could be something like that, and certainly some of the relationships, I think, that you have around your career come and go. You see them at various times and so forth. They could be very earth-oriented as well too. So some of you, it's sort of like, the sort of careers and work where it's, based on the land and the cycles of the land and who you would see at various points in time could be connected to that. There's also a sense of enlightenment around this with Zadkiel and expansion. So I do think you'll do very well in your career, and the connections that you have with the sort of sun energy here and then with the Jupiter energy there, you'll do very well. You'll get the good life out of your career and out of the work relationships that you have. But there's just something, it's very earthy, it's very grounded, but it's very cyclical. There's change. There's people, you either move jobs a lot, or you have, as I say, cycles in what you do. So the people that you see and the people that you relate to tend to change a bit. But I think there's a constancy around your love, around the close friendships and your love relationship and almost the social strata that you're in. But I feel like this feels a bit more eclectic and a bit more changeable depending upon what's necessary. So it's an interesting energy. So we're going to use tarot to get a little bit more detail on what's going on in each of those areas of your relationship life at the moment. So we'll start with love relationship energy, then we'll look at family and friends, then we'll look at career. Then we're going to have a look at what might be unconscious going on across all of them. So firstly, for pile 3, what is there going on in their love life, their sort of romantic relationships at this point in time? Okay, so this is very much in the point of time that you're seeing this. It's not necessarily what your relationship energy is across the board. So that's more the kind of energy we've talked about. I do think that many of the people who've come here, you might have spend a bit of time alone. Like, you have very high standards, as I say. So to some degree, somebody has to be right. If they're not quite right on those standards, you're not going to take it the next step. You may be drawn to quite a few people, and I think you draw a lot of people to you. I think you're very inspirational. I think you're very charismatic. But I think you've spent some time alone. I think you know that you want to come out of that, though. You've got a clearer idea, and you're in the process of forming it even more about what you want in terms of love. It is possible that maybe you did go into a relationship drawn more on emotion or whatever, and it wasn't really quite the cutout that you know you really want and you really need, and that might be why you've sort of withdrawn, and this is why you're thinking it through. There is something quite thought-oriented about love for you. It does need to fit certain criteria, and I don't want that to sound cold, because I don't mean it in a cold way, but I think you are very honest with yourself about who it is that you want to love and what that should look like and so forth. And I feel like maybe some of you tried something that didn't fit that, and you're kind of like getting over that in some way, and so you're becoming more precise about what you want. But you are ready, I think, to come out and be in a relationship. Now, if you are in one, I feel like maybe there's been some emotional disturbance in it, but you're coming into the balance to bring that into balance again. So I think, by and large, that is good. I don't feel a sense of a breakup. If that's the case, I feel a sense of being more connected and more together again. Let's have a look at family and friend relationship energy around you at the moment. Okay. I do think you're a muse to many people. I think there's something about you that's very creatively fascinating. I think you're very, very charismatic, very, very interesting. You're aspirational, I think, to a lot of friends to some degree. And I think that Spirit is now saying that you do need to think about that, like, is that a drain on your energy? One of the things that happens if you're a muse is it can be a bit vampiric. It can be that you get your energy, your inspiration, your beauty, your wit is drawn on a lot. I feel like that's happening quite a bit. I feel like the relationships, the friendships are probably good, but just something's happened in the pattern of it where your energy is being drained a bit at the moment. So you're feeling like you can't necessarily move forward and really start to be who you want to be. You're busy being the inspiration rather than being the person doing the art, so to speak, or something like that. And Spirit is saying, yeah, you need to kind of, bit like with the Page of Cups, you need to start defining what you want in love, more clearly and demanding it. You also need to be defining what you want in terms of creativity and passion and so forth as well. Because there's been something, and maybe because I do think most of your love relationships come through friendships, there maybe was one that didn't work out, and you're really trying to work out what that means. The World is a good card here. It does suggest that you're coming to the closure of whatever this cycle is. You're clearer on what you want, and that's, I think, why we've got this deep joy as well here. There is a sense that you do know what would make you happy, and you really started to work that out. If it's around family, there could be some rivalry. There could be some sibling rivalry or something like that around. Again, that could be a bit disappointing, but you're like the phoenix. You can arise from that if that's the case. Okay, let's have a look at work relationships. Okay, for a start, you've got some really good work relationships at the moment, even if they are cyclical and you only see them sometimes. And that's possible. With the King of Wands reversed, there's probably people who are there sometimes and at other times are gone. There's a sense of a lot of dynamism around your work and so forth. But you've got good work relationships. It is possible, though, with that and the very good sort of teams around you, people, fun, friends, all that kind of thing. It is possible, though, with the King of Wands reversed, that while this is good and this relationship is good, maybe not all of the people around have the same experience that you're having at work. You seem to be very good at having this enlightened way of dealing with change and bringing the best out and things. But with the King of Wands reversed, there maybe is like a manager or somebody around who's a little bit dominating. I think you're more than a match, but it's possible that some of the people around you aren't feeling that the same way. And that could be slowing down some of what you're trying to do and bringing some unhappiness around the team that you're around. But I feel like you potentially can help with that and inspire a different way of doing things. You are naturally sort of someone who can bring harmony to environments and to take people through what they need to do almost cyclically to get to what they need. But there is a possibility there's a bit of a dominating person around for some of you. I think you're more than able to deal with them and you've got a good relationship with them. Sorry, I just paused that. I don't know whether you heard, but there was a delivery truck outside that was playing incredibly loud music. So I don't know. I'm sorry if that got in the way of anything. Okay, so now I want to ask what you're not conscious of around your relationships. So we're just going to get 3 more tarot cards around that. Okay, what you're not conscious of, because as I say, you're very aspirational around this, you're likely to bring in the right love that fits all of that, you know, and the cleverness and all that sort of structure, and you're highly inspirational and you're able to deal with change and some of these egotistical people fairly well, whereas I think other people might find it hard, is that you are highly, as I say, aspirational to other people and you make them feel insecure. So that I'm not meaning that as a criticism. I think it can happen. You can be very unaware of that because you're very true to yourself, but you shine so brightly that some people who might want to connect with you maybe feel that they won't meet your standards or aren't up to what you do, and they feel like they'd like to connect with you, but are you going to stay, or are you, because of these cycles, particularly you may be in a very sort of changeable, you might travel a lot for work or something like that, or in very changeable environments, or you might come in and out of organisations. But there's something about you where people really admire you and are really drawn to you, but they wonder about whether if they tried to connect with you, whether it would last or whether you're a little bit above them. So I think you just need to be aware of that because, you know, you want to bring in the right people. And I don't think you're not sort of snobbish. That's not what this energy is. You just know who you are and you know what you want and you know sort of where you fit. But I think you might have a broader church, so to speak, of people that you would be happy to be around than maybe think you would be happy to be around. So it's just worth thinking about that. So let's have a look at some energy around anything that needs to be healed in relationships. Then we're going to look at what's really positive. So first I'm going to start with a deck that is about just healing energy in general to see what your spirit team think could be helpful to heal around relationships for you. Selling out. Pay attention to signs. Okay. So I don't think you're the type who would sell out. Your standards are far too high, but it is possible if people misinterpret what you're doing, they may think that those standards are some sort of like snobbishness or some sort of like, you know, you've got to kind of be really successful and I'll do anything to be successful. And that's not who you are. It's not what you're about. And it may be particularly if you're in creative areas that you just need to be aware that some people may not understand what you're trying to do. Pay attention to the signs. Also pay attention to synchronicities. With Zadkiel over here with enlightenment, you do have that really strong sense of things, a psychic sense around things. So pay attention to that, because I just think you're misunderstood sometimes. Let's have a look at what energy there is that's sort of like also healing, that's sort of magical for you. Dreams. Yeah, so maybe pay attention to what signs come in dreams for you. And pride. Okay. Yeah, I think for you it is about pride. It is about having standards. It is about, you know, like wanting to find your tribe and your people and your person, all of which is very valid. And I don't think it actually is snobby at all, but I just think you're kind of very, very high value sort of person in many ways. And I think that some people might misinterpret that as pride. So just being aware of that, looking out for the signs of that where people could misinterpret you will help you around relationships. Let's also get a card from the Rainbow Oracle, firstly around what needs to be healed, and then we'll also use that deck fairly soon around the positive as well. But firstly, what could be healed around relationship energy for you? Stillness. In the quietness of the moment, you can hear your inner voice more clearly. So maybe if you are feeling at the moment like what's happening around these relationships, you know, like I'm trying to get my tribe, but sometimes people aren't connecting with me or people misinterpret me, just sort of go into the stillness and pay attention to the signs and understand what your level of energy does, because it's a little bit intimidating So that could be helpful for you, I think. Let's have a look at what's positive, because there will be a lot that's positive with you. It's just, I think you could be misinterpreted. So let's see some of the positive energy using two different decks that are around colour. So firstly, we have Salmon, obstacles, perseverance and persistence. So one of the things that's very positive about your relationship nature, because you're very clear on who you are and you're very able to deal with cycles and change and ground energy, is that you will persevere when it's necessary. And if there are people who don't understand you and you want to connect with them, you will persevere. You have enough self-confidence not to be put off by that. What else do we have? Gold. Prosperity, riches and wealth. Yeah, so you're likely to do very well. You may already do very well. You could have come from money. You could have come from privilege. This could be some of what people get confused and they think it's pride or something like that. You are meant to be successful. You are meant to create the good life. But you know, you have really strong standards about things. And I think people just need to understand that. Let's see some other colour energy around you. Grey, learn to scan your body. Okay, so it may be saying that one of the ways that you can get the first signs around this and to know, you know, this is a skill you have, so it's a positive thing, to know kind of like what's your gut tell you, basically. You know, what are you feeling kinesthetically around people? You're likely to really get a sense of enlightenment and understanding with that. So if you feel uncomfortable on some level, bodily around it, it may be worth sort of then trying to explore it, go into the stillness, and or, you know, ask a question if you feel comfortable with the person concerned. And then we have lavender, body, mind and soul connection. Yeah, I think that's going back to the body again. You have a very, you know, because you've got a very strong mind and a very strong sort of set of values and so forth, but you just need to get, you know, listen to your body and to your soul a bit more. You're very kind of 3D oriented, and I don't mean that in a negative way. You're very much able to manifest, but you need to connect to the thing that almost drove the high standards in you in the first place. So let's get a rainbow oracle card that's positive around your relationships. Multidimensional, your awareness is expanding, integrating consciousness to become your highest expression of being. Yeah, multidimensional. You can do the 3D, as I was just saying, but you are also mind and soul as well. You're able to connect on all those levels. You are high value and there's nothing wrong with knowing that about yourself. You've developed a lot. You've got a lot of skill, a lot of intelligence. You're very loyal to those that are connected to you. But as I say, I just think you might be a bit intimidating. All right, so let's have a look at some astrology energy around your relationships as well. Sun. Yeah, you shine really brightly. Third quarter, releasing out with the old, so things that haven't worked, letting go of. 10th house, you're going to be very successful in your career. 8th house, you really do understand the depths of things and so forth. And the mind body, get that together. And the 9th house, you're likely to be very well educated. Okay. You are very much out in the world because like 8th, 9th and 10th houses are all in the upper part of the chart. You are meant to be seen in the world, highly skilled, highly developed. So, you know, if you are creative, you've really developed that. If you're academic and really smart, you've really developed that. You do have that kind of heft to what you do, but also the depth and understanding to really get to this. It's not going to be beyond you once you realise that maybe this is what's happening. You'll be able to deal with this. And a lot of it you'll see first in your career, and then you can maybe then sort of look at it elsewhere. But you are meant to shine. And to be able to, with that cyclic energy, let go of what isn't working anymore and move on. So you don't carry grudges, you don't none of that really. You can move on, you're very dynamic in your energy, but you do shine very brightly, so you need to be aware of that. Okay, so last but not least, we're going to use a card from the Love Oracles, which is all sorts of people from history with their love advice. So sometimes it's just funny, and if it's just funny, take that. Other times it can really fit and be profound. So we'll just see what we get as a closing energy for you. Joan of Arc, this came up in another one. Very different reading, but I can kind of see it in a different way for you as well too. So in the other reading, it was really about someone who's always a bit of a warrior and always sort of needing to have a battle. I think for you, Joan of Arc had enormously high standards and worked and was very sort of prominent in very high, powerful situations. and was a visionary. So again, connecting to the spirit as well as the, and maybe through the body, through kinesthetic stuff, to know what is true, and had huge standards. Like, she had incredibly high standards. So she says, only settle for eternity. Yeah, because there's something like, you should have a great love, and it should be exactly the right person for you with this energy. And I think beyond that, with the cycles of eternity and, the good life and all that kind of thing, like getting something that really is grounded and is created. And I think you're meant to be very successful. Love and faith will defeat violence. So if there are people who don't understand you and are pushing back, your real innate love and your real innate caring and so forth will shine through. It's just a matter of understanding and clarifying that. And she says, be not afraid of fire and arrows or anything that may come. So to the degree, if there's anybody who is trying to sort of say that you're kind of sold out, or you're prideful, or you're this or you're that, you can pretty much kind of almost dust them off, really. But understanding that there's some people who probably aren't going to be saying anything like that about you at all, but you might want in your life, but they're a little bit intimidated to come forward. Just knowing that, because Joan of Arc was so fierce that probably kind of made a few people feel they couldn't approach her. So I think that's your real challenge. The rest, I think, is going to work itself out. So I hope that resonates for you, Pile 3. I hope you enjoyed the reading. And if so, please like the video and subscribe. I hope that I see you in future episodes of the You Through the Houses series. Once a month I do this through to the end of the year, and we'll have covered the 12 houses by then. If this is the first one you've come across, we've already done houses 1 to 6, so they're in a playlist that you can connect to. And as I say, we'll do the others once a month until we get to the last month of the year. So I hope that I see you in future ones if you enjoyed this, and I hope beyond that I see you in future sort of normal, non-series based pick a card readings. Welcome, Pile 4, to your reading. So these cards are about love and romance. These cards are about friends and family, and these cards are around career relationships. So the first overall feeling I get from this is that you are about healing, deeply healing in some way. You may absolutely work within healing therapeutics, whether it's sort of traditional medicine or sort of alternative or something like that, or psychology, or even work like this, because there's a very sort of psychic, spiritual sort of energy, magical energy around you. But you have a deep sense of love for others and are wanting to bring balance and healing and calm and almost emancipate or rescue people when it's necessary. You may very well have learnt very young that was sort of something that was of value, and it's part of what is part of your persona. So you might have been sort of someone as a child who wanted to be Superman or something like that because of the rescuing energy or something like that. There's definitely a feeling of looking after others and being prepared to be courageous to do it. But it's all in service of others, and it's all in service of health and harmony and that kind of thing. Now, why I say this is, firstly, around romance, the first two cards here from the Vampire Oracle and the Fairy Tale Oracle, I wanted to use because the Vampire Oracle picks up the very intense sort of energy that's often in love relationships. And the Fairy Tale Oracle picks up what programming we might have had from very young, from stories and so forth, about what love is and what it means to be a loving person. And you put these two together. The Snow Queen is actually a fairy story that the movie Frozen was based on. So it's effectively the story of a sister who is able to unfreeze her sister after a magical spell because of the loyalty and the truth of her love. So you very much want to unfreeze, heal, and draw people together, and your love is very, very pure. And in fact, I think that most of the people who come here, you will probably emancipate somebody through love. Your great love, or the person that you're with, is somebody that you're likely to free from their own sense of being frozen. You could, in fact, be the sort of person who's drawn to someone who is very emotionally shut down, and you eventually work on that and thaw them out and bring them out, because you have that loyalty and you can see what is underneath there very much. And as I say, it may be with the first house here that this nature is very much how you're seen in the world. So it may be, as I say, you're very, very good in some way around relationships and caring and healing anyway. So it kind of bleeds over in a way into a love relationship. But you do want to free people from emotional blocks and so forth. You'd be a very healing energy for those that you were in love with and who loved you in that way. But you're also a bit of an iconoclast with the anti-hero card here. So you will break the rules, take the risk, do what is necessary to bring about this emancipation. And you're very strong in who you are. You know that you know your stuff. You know that you're on the right path, all of that kind of thing. So people may sometimes not know initially. They may see you as sort of someone who is very much in their own space and very, very sort of different and as I say, iconoclastic. And they may not realise that you would see things through. So it may be one of the patterns for you around relationship would be that some people may not initially thaw out to you because they're a little bit overwhelmed by how strong you seem. And they're not really sure if you're someone who's for conventional relationships. But in actual fact, you really do want to have a very strong relationship. It doesn't have to be one that sort of ends up in marriage or something like that. You may be an iconoclast on that level, but you'll be very loyal. When you're in love, you're there and you're there for the long term, and it's very true. But I think there might be a little bit of how you come across to people that might confuse potential love relationships at first. But if they hang around long enough, and I think that you will find someone that will, you're going to heal them. And in the end, they're going to realize it was them that needed to be unstuck, not you that needed to become loyal. So that's very interesting. Then around family and friends, we have Morgan Le Fay, so there's something magical. You may have come from a family of sort of spiritual seekers or people into that sort of thing, or you might have had a sense of magic and spiritual ability coming down through your bloodline. But certainly you see friendship and family as a magical thing, as something that is enlivening to the world and something that has taught you about the importance of service to others. You have a very healthy attitude to friends and family, and probably came from a pretty healthy sort of family environment. If not, you've certainly transmuted that and had a healthy look at it anyway. But you're very much, your sense of purpose and your need to serve others, I think was born out of the values of your family, either very positively, as I say, from a family that valued that, or the exact opposite, where you didn't feel everybody was out for themselves, so you actually wanted to serve others. But there's something around serving others in this, and it permeates your friendships as well too. Part of your purpose, I think, in life is to support and help others. Now, I think I said in the beginning with the astrology stuff, if you listen to that there are a number of planets if they're in the 7th house, that can mean we can get out of balance with that. We can spend too much giving to others and accommodating them and not enough looking after ourselves. So there is a little bit of a risk of that. If your purpose is about serving others and you bring your magic to bear to that, are you bringing enough of your magic to bear to what you need as well? So it's just a little bit of a cautionary thing. Over here around career, Hypnos is a really interesting card to come up around career relationships. I mean, it's like hypnotism, it's like sleep, it's like rest and relaxation. I think that you have a very calming impact on the work relationships around you. You could be someone who's brought in to deal with sort of conflict and just sort of like settle it all down and so forth. You also help people get to their kind of like psychic inner knowing and that sense of understanding and get things healed into balance. But as I say, many of you may be in the healing arts in some way. Some of you may literally be hypnotherapists, for instance, or people working in sort of spiritual healing like Reiki or something like that. There's something about that. It's something about bringing that energy in and serving others through calming down things and clarifying things, bringing them into balance. So there's something about your career and the way that you are. So it's either the way that you respond to and relate to people, you just calm the waters, you get them sort of into balance and so forth, and you bring clarity, or it's something that you do with your career. Okay, that then permeates those relationships. I'll just move that a bit. That's just the ring light, sorry about that. So we're going to look at tarot, and we're going to look at the current energies around this, because this is almost like blueprint energy. So we're going to look at the current energies around your love relationships, your family and friends, and your career relationships in turn. And then we'll have a look at what you aren't seeing, what's unconscious. So to start with, let's have a look at the energy around love relationships, romantic relationships for you at the moment. Okay, that's interesting. So there's two things that are possible here. It is possible that you've been alone for a while with the Five of Pentacles there. And if so, with the Four of Swords reversed, you're sort of like coming out from that and thinking about getting yourself out there and seen again, being on the dating market or whatever. You've been a little bit hesitant around that if that's the case, because maybe with the Five of Wands reversed there was some sort of competition or pushback or something from a previous relationship that you're still, kind of coming to terms with. And if that's the case, if you've been alone or whatever, it looks to me like, real free energy, passion, everything comes in quite quickly, that the worst is over if there was something that was difficult. If you're in a relationship at the moment, there may have been some unspoken sort of tension that was operating, but it looks like you free that as well, and it comes out of that sort of sense of kind of mutual standoff, because remember, you're very good at this as part of your relationship energy. But I also think this is a really good blueprint of exactly what we're saying here. It looks to me like you're kind of breaking through somebody and emancipating them with the Eight of Wands through their own sort of issues. It looks like you're bringing that energy to bear on something. So some of you that have come here, you might know exactly what I meant there. You might go, yeah, I'm sort of like trying to see someone and trying to get them to kind of like unfreeze, and I know it's there, but I haven't quite got there yet. I haven't quite worked out the way, to break the rules and get through. It looks as though that's about to happen. So I think either way, that energy to break through, to free energy, to get rid of what is stuck and to take people out of isolation, including yourself, is manifesting itself for you at the moment. So let's have a look around friends and family. Okay, there's a bit of a mixed bag here, I have to say. So, on one hand, there's some very long-standing friends by the looks of things, potentially, right back to childhood, or certainly ones that, there are very long-standing and good relationships with and enjoyable relationships with. So there are some people that you're absolutely aligned with, whether it's friends or family. I feel it's probably primarily friends, but friends of quite long-standing. On the other hand, there may be at least one either family member or friend that is very tricky to deal with. With the Queen of Wands reversed and the Knight of Pentacles reversed, if this is a family member, they tend to want to be front and center all the time, and there's something about you that stands out, and they tend to be quite competitive. They might have almost liked it if you were alone, and if you're actually coming out of that and finding someone, that you could get a bit of pushback from them. They might even say to you, oh, is it going to last, and so forth. There's something, maybe they've broken up with somebody, but there's something a bit competitive around it. Or if it's a friend, a similar sort of thing. It could be a kind of a friendship thing that may be changing, most of your friendships last a long time, but I feel like maybe there might be at least one where there's a competitive energy that's come up that you're kind of coming to terms with. And you may have put too much into it and given too much to this person, but they want to be center stage all the time. So there's some energy around that, and I think it's caused you some anxiety. So it's probably, as I say, coming up as this Queen of Wands reversed energy, a sort of, and if it's, as I say, if it's a family member, it's like sibling rivalry or something like that, and they kind of want to suggest to you that things are impermanent and that you should worry. But in actual fact, really around friendships, family, and I think even, as I say, in terms of love, you're on the right course. You know what you're doing. Okay, let's have a look at work, because as I say, work looks very interesting to me around relationships for pile 4. What's happening at the moment? Okay, so there's some really good things happening around your career and relationships. You're getting recognized for what you can do. And I think maybe getting a benefactor, somebody who will support you moving further on, and creative sort of energy looks very good. So there's some very good relationship energy around you. There is something that you're reluctant to end. So it may be that somebody wants you to move up the ladder and you're not sure if you want to do that. Like, you'd have to end sort of what you were doing. You might be used to doing a sort of role where, as I say, you mediate and you keep everything calm, and somebody has recognised that and said, move up to a higher level position. And you may be a little bit reluctant about that with the King of Swords reversed too. You might be thinking, I don't want to, you are more happy within the realm of the emotions and that kind of thing, and relationships, and not so much in rules, regulations, and so forth. And that iconoclast energy is coming up a bit with the King of Swords reversed too. So I think you may be a little bit reluctant to maybe take a next step up or do something like that. I think you are being recognised. You're very good at what you do, but you're just thinking, I don't know, like, can I be the iconoclast if I move up? And, if I, and if this is like a business opportunity, it's like if somebody's offering me money, do I lose some of my autonomy? Because freedom matters to you and you want to free other people. So it could also be that there's some money potentially being offered to you, but you're not sure about the values of the person who's doing it as well too. And service to others and healing and so forth is very important to you. So there's a lot of positive energy, but you're a little bit equivocal about it for some reason. Okay, so let's ask what you don't see. Okay. So for a start, around the career thing, there's some information that's coming out that you don't see yet with High Priestess reversed. So it might be sort of suggesting just cool your jets and wait before you make a decision if you can around some of this, because something's going to come out and you'll be able to work out whether or not it's in line with your values and your heart. You can't do that yet. There's probably a lot to be said for this, because the King of Pentacles, you could make a lot of money and it could be solid and something you really kind of enjoyed and picked up, sort of like the healing energy as well. But there is something you don't know. Like, this is literally saying there's something you don't know. And I feel like it's talking about career. I don't think it's about friends or family or love. I think it's about career, because it's connecting that way. So I think you will have a better sense about what you want to do next with your career and how you can be true to who you are and how you want to relate in the near future. Something's coming out that you don't know yet, like literally don't know yet. Okay, so let's have a look at what needs to be healed around relationships for you. Because no matter how good our relationships are, and I think you're actually very talented with relationships, but regardless of all of that, we do have some healing we need to do. So let's see what Spirit is suggesting for you. Procrastination, okay. And sadness. Okay, so maybe there is some sort of sadness around a relationship. It could be in friendship, I think, with that energy we saw before, or it could be a past relationship or something that you were loyal to and the person didn't unthaw. But there's some maybe healing you need to do for yourself around sadness and so forth. But you look like you're kind of avoiding dealing with that. So it could be just kind of like, rip the Band-Aid off. You can sort of let that flow out, because you are good at dealing with this stuff. It's almost like apply your own approach to yourself in a way about something, because it's, physician heal thyself is sort of the energy of it. Let's have a look at some magical energy around you that could help you with your relationships. Friendship, yeah, it's got to do with something in a friendship. I thought that was what I was picking up. Whatever that friendship issue is, it's kind of like just deal with it one way or the other. And you'll either resolve it or you'll move on. And pride. You don't have too much pride about it. Don't feel like you can't deal with it or can't face it. Or that whatever happens with it really says anything much about you. This other person has some issues, I think. So don't let that get in your way of resolving the issue. Let's also ask the Rainbow Oracle for an energy around healing you and your relationships. Duality. This came up for another one, so you may connect to another of the readings. In a world of duality sits truth, a place where love dances in unity with its own shadow. So yeah, I think because you are so focused on healing others and you are a really lovely energy, you do need to recognise not everybody is. And I just think there's something around a friendship where you just need to see that duality exists so that you can heal, you can make decisions and heal it. So let's look at some positive energy around relationships for you. I'm using two different decks that draw on colour energy to bring out the positive relationship energy. So firstly, we have Ivory, Charm, Finesse and Poise. Yeah, you definitely have that. Your first house energy around love is very strong. You're sort of Neptunian, you're the ideal to many people, particularly in a workplace and so forth. And, there is charm and finesse and poise around service to others as well. So know that you have that. Know that you have great grace in how you deal with relationships. And then we also have Mint, daydream, fantasy, imagination. So maybe saying like, like do work out what you want, because you're so focused on healing others and meeting what their needs are. There is a little bit of a balance thing there because, as I say, sometimes people can exploit that and that's quite hurtful. Let's see some other colour energy for you from another deck. So we have lavender, body, mind, and soul connection. That came up in another reading as well too. So connecting all those things. But I think you would know how to do that. That's why this is coming up in the positives. You are a natural healer. You do have that and back that. You do have that very well in balance. And Pearl, strengthen your connection with the divine. So you do have that, but maybe you've been so focused on the sort of day-to-day world and helping others and healing others that you're kind of feeling a little bit disconnected. I'd say potentially start with Raphael. I feel like Archangel Raphael with health and balance, it'll naturally align to who you are, I think. All right, let's get another rainbow oracle card, but this time around one of your sort of key strengths in terms of relationship patterns. Stillness. In the quietness of the moment, you can hear your inner voice more clearly. So that frozen sort of that patience, that stillness, the hypnosis, you are able to get to those sort of like frequencies that are quieter and calmer. And that is one of the really beautiful things about the way that you relate. Okay, so let's have a look at some astrology energy around your relationship patterns, pile 4. With waning crescent moon, release control. Yeah, you don't have to heal everybody. You're very, very good at it. You'll naturally do it a lot, but don't feel like you have to heal everybody. Full moon, reap the harvest, get what is yours and get the reward and so forth. It's not all about being selfless. And then waxing gibbous, there's a lot about the moon for you. Moon cycles are obviously very important to you. Pay attention to them. This is about clarifying your direction and intention. So once you've started to see what you can harvest and you've released control of what you can't change, then you can start to clarify your direction. All right, and then we have Mercury, so communication, the mind, how you communicate with people is very important. And fixed. So this is signs Taurus, Leo, Scorpio or Aquarius could be strong in your chart or connected to, say, your 7th house or other relationship sort of houses like the 8th house or the 5th house. This does mean this is your loyal energy. Once you have a love or a friend or a cause or something that you're trying to do in work, you will see it through. You've got that perseverance. Okay, so to finish off, we're just going to draw a card from the Love Oracles, which is an oracle that has lots of different people from history and their love advice. So I thought that could be a humorous, potentially, way of ending this, because sometimes it is just funny, but every once in a while it's also very, very profound for the reading. So let's just see what you get, pile 4. Wow, Diana, Princess of Wales. Well, that fits. Like if you ever had an icon to fit the energy of you, that's pretty much it. Like she was, for all that she had to deal with a lot, she really did try and sort of unthaw and heal some of that energy in the family that she found herself in or that she married into. She was the Queen of Hearts. She was known for that. She was known for her love nature, but she was also a maverick. So this very much fits with you. Very similar sort of energy. She had a magic, like extraordinary magic and charisma, and I think was incredibly healing for other people. I remember like when she died that, like there were all these sort of videos and stuff of people sort of bursting into tears, and I felt like it was a collective healing in a strange way that people could let that grief out. And I'm actually feeling it now as I'm actually getting tears in my eyes, feeling that energy. I think that she was a much maligned at some points in terms of who she was, but also much loved and loved by those who really understood who she was. So I think it's a very, very apt actual energy for the energy that you bring to things. Her advice is better to have one night of pleasure than a whole life of misery. So yes, like go for what you love and what you care about and stick it out till you get to that. Also, don't ask, don't tell. DNA tests are for commoners. I think that's just humorous. I'm not really sure what that says, really. And then she also says, the truth is there are many people in every marriage. So I think that might be picking up the friendship energy where there seems to be sort of like some crowding in on what you care about and what you're prepared to give and support for others. So I think that might be a little bit of a hint about, like keep your relationship sacred and don't give so much that there isn't room for you. But otherwise, pile 4, I think you're a master at relationships. I just think it's a matter of not giving too much and making sure that your dreams also come true. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope that you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And I hope to see you in future You Through the Houses as we go through the rest of the houses through to the 12th house between now and the end of the year, one a month. And if this is the first one of the series that you've seen, we've done houses 1 through to 6 already, and they're in a playlist that you can find on my channel. So if you enjoyed this, you may want to check those out as well. So I just hope I see you in the rest of the series. And beyond that, I hope that I see you in future pick a card readings.